Day one, Border Gavaskar series starts today in Perth. Going to be an absolute belting couple of months ahead with 5 test matches starting today in Perth. Two teams coming in, the two best teams in the world. Australia pretty settled. McSweeney to debut. We'll get into that a little bit later. India a little bit up in the air with what their 11 is going to be, but it's going to be a crazy start today in Perth. The wicket's going to be an interesting one. From all reports, it seems like it's going to be a belter, fast, bouncy, standard WA. But it's going to be an interesting toss to win to see who really gets first crack at it. As we said, the Australian lineup pretty steady. McSweeney coming in at the top. India, interesting, but we'll go through a few of the different keys for this tournament, this 5-test series. The Australian bowling lineup. The Australian bowling lineup is absolutely incredible. The fact that these three quicks in particular have been able to play for as long as they have, it's going to be really interesting with no Cameron Green in this series to sort of see where that fifth bowling option comes in and if Marsh's body can hold up as well, and how many overs early in the series that these Aussie quicks get through, and whether we get further down the series, whether there'll be some management of them, because really Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark have been incredible with the amount of cricket they've been able to play back to back. They've had a decent break, a decent spell, which could hold them in really good stead. But in saying that, it's a mammoth workload, and there's going to be some big days. So it's going to be really interesting to see how their bodies hold up with that. The McSweeney project, really interesting from a selection point of view. Look, I think Nathan McSweeney is a serious cricketer. I think he's a very good cricketer. I think he's a great middle order player. Personally, I don't think he's suited to number one. It's going to be interesting how this goes. I hope that he can stay a little bit still, a bit stiller for longer. We've been so used to David Warner being an aggressive opening bat, but one thing David Warner did was get his foot down and really make sure that his foot was down before he started hitting the ball. McSweeney, for me, is still a little bit on the move. Technically, I think that could cause some problems for him. Jasper Brummer's not a great person to be facing if you are still on the move. So watch for that to see how still he can be at the crease. He's going to be partnered by Khawaja. Khawaja will help him out a lot. But the McSweeney project for me is a really interesting one. I think that's where Steve Smith fell down, and he was moving too much with the new ball. It's a lot easier coming through the middle order and moving into the ball, whereas traditional openers need to be, and they get themselves into that still position at point of impact. So it's going to be really interesting to see how McSweeney goes. I think he's a star. I think he's a great player. I think he's much better suited for the middle order, but I really hope that he can get through the first spell, because Jasper Brummer is a tough ask for anyone. Another massive thing for the Australians, I think, are the South Australians. I think Travis Head, Alex Carey, through the middle in this series are going to hold a massive key for the Australian cricket team. If they can take some of these middle innings situations, and then even batting with the tail in Alex Carey, and how many extra runs you can get whilst batting with the tail. Carey coming in unbelievable form through Shield cricket. Probably the most informed batter we have in the country, and Travis Head's had some good time off, and no doubt that he'll be raring to go, and he's been such a star player for us for such a long amount of time. It's going to be a huge series again with Alex Carey with the gloves. It gets overlooked so much, but his keeping work has been outstanding, making sure that we take all those half chances and that he can continually keep pressure on with his gloves, especially in the work with Lyon in Perth with that extra bounce, the nicks that come sort of really get high on your shoulder. So, but his gloves have been outstanding, and it's probably something that's a lot of the time overlooked. But again, for me, holds a huge part in this series to see what can happen. So massive. Summer ahead for the Aussie lineup, but I think they're in a really good space, and hopefully, as I said, the McSweeney project can work. Over to India now. What's their makeup? It's going to be really interesting with a couple of batters out. Who's going to be their fifth bowler? Can they play Ashwin and Jadeja? If they play both, I think they should. Ashwin, if they do pick one, I think they'll go Ashwin just in Perth with his height. I think he'll be a really difficult prospect for Australia to get around just with that bounce. But I think they potentially will play Ashwin and Jadeja. We'll find out in a couple of hours when the team lists go in. But it's going to be a really big test for the Australian batters facing Ashwin on a bouncing wicket, and I think Jadeja, and they both give you so much in that middle order with the bat. They're both dangerous. So yeah, they're probably spinning all-rounders that I think that should play. But again, coming back to the batting lineup with Rowett and Gill getting injured, with Rowett out and Gill injured, KL Rahul and Jaiswal. Jaiswal's a gun bat. He's going to be tested, but I think he's a seriously good cricketer. He's been a star. Every Indian you speak to rates him very highly. So it's going to be a big test for him, but I think huge. I think Devdutt Padikkal at 3, and then the great Virat Kohli. Everyone's been on Kohli for the last little bit, but he is a sensational player. He'll rise to the occasion, and his box office. He's going to have a huge hand in this series. If he can get in, the momentum that the Indians will take with having him scoring runs will be huge. Rishabh Pant, I think he's a massive key. I think he's the wild card to this whole series. I think the amount of pressure that he'll put back onto the Australian bowling lineup, especially to Nathan Lyon. I think he'll attack Nathan Lyon. It'll be interesting in the middle overs of those middle innings. Whether or not he can sort of counter-attack very much like an Adam Gilchrist type or even an MS Dhoni type. Rishabh Pant at 5, I think is huge. I think Jarrell will bat 6. And then I think 7 and 8 will be Ashwin, Jadeja, Bumrah, Siraj, and Akash Deep, I think will make up the 11. Again, we'll find out very soon, but for all of the talk about it being a bit of a mixed Indian lineup, it's a pretty strong lineup when you look at that. Where will that fifth bowler come from if they don't play the spinners? Will they play Nitish Kumar Reddy, who's the medium pace all-rounder? Will Washington play? We don't really think that at the moment, but it's a really good side, and it's something that will definitely give the Aussies some nightmares over the coming months. But it's huge. Things to watch for me, as I said at the start, the Aussie quicks and their bodies, how the amount of overs, especially starting in Perth and then Brisbane, Adelaide, there's going to be a lot of pounding and a lot of hard wickets that they're going to be running in on. So hopefully their bodies can hold up. If their bodies hold up and those 3 quicks play all 5 tests, I think that's going to be a huge boost for Australia. If they do have to start rotating, if there is an injury, Scotty Boland is a massive replacement in the wings there, but it'll be interesting to see if the Aussies can keep that bowling attack together. And then what happens with the Indian bats? Does Gill come back? When does Rohit Sharma come back into the fold? And when those guys do come back in, who's making runs, who's not making runs, where does the pressure fall? One of the things that always comes back into Test series is the catching and the half chances. I think it's going to be massive now with who can take those half chances, where the catches will be taken. The Aussies are a gun fielding side, and you're very used to the Australians getting their way and taking their catches and taking those half chances that run out here or there. Very good. India, in the past, we've seen that they've dropped some chances, and if you drop a Travis Head early in his innings, or you give Steve Smith an opportunity to have a second chance at an innings, they usually make you pay. So I think the catching and the half chances are going to be a massive part. And momentum from either side. If the Australians, for me, have to start well, they have to get this first win, because you don't want to go into Melbourne and Sydney with the series still on the line, with a charging India. There's going to be probably 80,000 Indians at the MCG. Really, it'll almost become a home game in Melbourne and Sydney, I think, for India. So I really think the Australians have to come out strong. They have to hit them as hard as they can at the start. But the momentum's going to be key. Enjoy Perth. It's going to be a great start to the series. Can't wait. Day 1 of the first test is massive. My predictions are 3-1 to the Aussies, and I think Travis Head for man of the series.